Welcome to Solace, and today we have a problem with false confidence. Um, a huge problem with false confidence. And what I mean by false confidence is confidence derived through external means. So, this is something I've brought up in a couple of my videos at this point. Well, both of my videos at this point, or all three of my videos. Okay, anyways. Basically, when we aren't comfortable with finding validation through ourselves, what we tend to do is look for that validation in other people or things. And I mean, just saying that out loud, you can kind of see the problem with that, as there are a few. I don't know which is heaven, but because of that, we don't really even get to experience ourselves properly and authentically. Because once you're deriving who you deem yourself to be through things outside of yourself, you're not being you. You're being who you would prefer other people to see you as, or who you feel like you should be, rather than who you authentically are. Of course, in today's society, it is pretty hard to feel like being authentically you is how you should be, because when you see other things working for other people, you start to question, well, if being like this works, why would I try to do something new? Why would I break the mold? Um, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type shit. Now, for one, that's a fear mindset. You're avoiding yourself because you don't feel comfortable in presenting yourself. And it's sad because it's not only you, it's actually the majority of people at this point. Like, we've grown to the point where, especially through the constant information loops that we have and the cycles of information that are shown to us on a daily basis, the ideas that we start to accumulate and take hold of are not the best, especially not when used properly. The example I could give is to have a hobby that you want to engage in, but the way you go about engaging in said hobby is through what you believe works for other people. And now, that's not to say that doing what works for other people won't work for you. It can. But you shouldn't be looking only to replicate and copy what other people do, because they're not you and you're not them. Now, when it comes to breaking these cycles, what I always personally suggest is to, for one, disconnect yourself from the opinions of others. If you're constantly in access to everybody else's opinion, you're not going to want to take yourself into consideration, because you believe that these things are what make you, when in reality, you make you, and only you can make you. So a way of doing that would be to take a break from social media. I know that's like the most typical basic thing you hear from people, but it's real. Like, you genuinely need to break yourself from the connections, even if you're not talking to anybody on there, because you're on there and you're perceiving other people to see you. You don't feel, you put yourself in a cage, in chains. And whether or not you consciously feel that doesn't matter. It's there because you're projecting this image outward and expecting people to then deliver a certain amount of energy back to that. When you disconnect from social media, what you give yourself is a mental break to allow yourself to understand, what do I want, separate from what I believe other people want from me. They're two completely separate and different things. But what happens is the mind starts to mix and match these things because it feels as though one has to be like the other, because at the end of the day, we have to be doing something for each other. You know? And when you disconnect in that way, what you start to realize is you aren't. This, of course, isn't going to be for everybody, but for the most part, especially if you're chronically online, you start to realize you have no idea what you want. Or if you believe you have some form of dream, it's a dream that was sold to you. Or you have convinced yourself that you want something that has nothing to do with what you really want because other people want it. I really feel like I should start looking into the camera more because I can see how like off base I am with it, but it's okay. I'll try it. I just see myself in the corner because I'm recording on my phone, so it's distracting. But I will say, once you start to realize what you want is not what is projected through social media, you begin to see that you've lost yourself in an image, in a facade, in a mask, whatever word you want to use. And to find yourself again, it's part of the process. Most people, you're going to have and experience a dark night of the soul, tower moment, whatever you want to call it, where eventually everything crumbles down and you start to realize the world that you were in wasn't real. And the way to go up from there is to begin to build the foundation for what you genuinely want. Of course, this is easier said than done, but it's never impossible. What you need to grow to understand is you have full autonomy and control over you. Disregarding anything outside of yourself is the first thing you must do. That's not to say that you shouldn't pay attention to your responsibilities. Of course you should. You have things you need to do them. I don't have to tell you that because you should understand that. But I also understand, for the most part, there are some things that can like subconsciously fade into the background because we find the simple things to not really be as important after a while, because we believe that the most complex ideas are the ones that bring the most fruits. It's not true. Before you can get into the details, you have to understand the picture to begin with. And it's one of those things that it takes time. And I know now more than ever, instant gratification is one of those things that everybody loves to engage in. We've become impatient as a collective. I've always been impatient, so I already understand how that feels. But to understand that you have a lot of work to do, it scares you. It turns you off because that's not something you can instantly show for. You can't reap the benefits of the next day. The rewards aren't something you can physically show to people to show off or to be proud of. But what you should be proud of is the fact that you're trying to begin with. The fact that you want to begin that step. You're taking yourself above a lot of people. And it's only going to progressively get larger as that gap in society grows in disparity. I mean, if you just pay attention to how the general collective tends to talk to each other at this point in time, there's conflict in every form and fashion. Men and women, Twitter comments, social politics, nations, etc., 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 etc. And when we're surrounded in a world full of chaos such as this, to have a moment of solace, it brings you that sense of clarity that you need to create the life you want. You can't create with all of these unpredictable factors around you. I will say, some people do like to function in chaos, and more power to you. However, it doesn't really allow the brain the time to process all of the ideas that it needs to. Instead, you're constantly filling it with more and more things, which then lowers your attention span to that. Which I think as a collective now, we've gotten to the point where we have the attention span lower than a goldfish, which is fucking insane. But you know, that's it is what it is, I guess. But be realistic. Understand you're gonna have to take time. Growing up isn't a process of waking up the next day and you have it all together. No. But if you take these small steps towards that each day, if you do something that provides you the self-validation, the self-confidence that you need to move forward, you won't need external validation. So do things that you can be proud of. What would make you proud of? What? What would you be able to do to make yourself proud? Of course, this depends on the person, but for the most part, what I can tell you is you do something that you've always wanted to do. It's as simple as that. But when we convince ourselves that what we want to do is what everybody else is doing, now we don't really know what that means. And that fucks things up a lot, because that's how we have to go back into the cycle again of relearning ourselves and relearning what we want outside of what they want. And let me say this. I don't personally believe you have to completely disconnect yourself from social media forever. No. But what I do believe is that you take as much time as you need to for that to feel right before you come back. You do not want to come back into this environment without the proper growth, because you will bring yourself right back down to where you were to begin with, and you'll have to repeat it again and again and again. And the more you do these things, the less capable you'll believe yourself to be, because you keep failing yourself. And there is no greater disappointment than failing yourself. You may not feel it. You may feel like disappointing your parents or your friends is worse, but deep down, when you even do these things, it's a failure of the self. I'm not doing what I told myself I wanted to do. So how could you feel confident? What is there to be confident? Jesus. What is there to be confident in? Riddle me that, Batman. So understand that these things, I'm going to keep saying it, it takes time. It takes time. I'm not saying it's going to take fucking half your life. I mean, if we look into the past generations, and you probably know people like this, whether it be in your family or people at work, there are people in their fucking 50s or 60s, 70s that haven't figured a fucking thing out besides what they were told. So you trust me, you can do a lot with even a year, a month, a week, as long as you stay consistent with what you want to do. Because when you start to deprogram yourself from the ideas that were provided to you and start to understand what it is that you want, separate from those things, you put yourself above and I can't even put into words how many people. And it's not a competition, I guess. But what I will say is, you find your confidence in being authentic. If you hide yourself, how can you be confident? You don't even get to know yourself, you know? So, just wanted to have a little talk with you about that, you know? it is hard. It takes time, but the payoff is insurmountable to what you could get from convincing yourself through other people's means that you are who you are. Because once you find out who you are and you validate and solidify that in your being, there is no taking that back. So, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. A nice little short talk. I told you I was going to be a little bit more. I've been consistent. I'm going. My fault. My phone just did eat me, so I'm gonna just finish this off here. I'm pretty sure that was it, anyways. If you liked it, like it. Disliked it, dislike it. Subscribe. We're going to be here every day of the week. If there's ever a point in time where I change that schedule, you'll know. But for now, we're going to continue this. We're going to grow. We're going to keep this going on Solace. You look amazing today. As always, just make sure you continue to drink that water. Okay? Maybe some raspberry, cranberry. Or is it cran? Okay, you got it. And some Patron, why not? Get a little loose. But thank you for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow.